Fox here, back with another video. And it's a long overdue video, but today I thought I'd finally talk about, well, I finally got enough motivation to talk about a very particular synth that I got in September of 2021. Now, this was a very special time for me because it was actually the first really big purchase I made with my own money, and it was also the first vintage synthesizer that I ever got, and that was the Roland D-20, and my specific one, looking it up, seems to be from October 1988, and I'm gonna talk a bit about it. So yeah, so start off sometime around August 31st of 2021. I was aimlessly looking around for old vintage synthesizers. I don't remember why exactly, but I was, and I came across a 1989 Kawai K12, and I remember seeing that it was like it was very, very cheap. It was like $200 or something like that, and I remember thinking, like, if I can get a vintage synth for that cheap, what else could I get? And I started to think, like, I've always wanted to have a vintage, like a vintage synthesizer, so I thought it'd be very cool to like finally own one. So I talked with some of my friends on that one server that I talked about in my first video, the Synthwave Producer server, and I found they helped me find this one specific synth called the Roland D-20. And I had never heard of this before, but as it turns out, it's the little brother to the D-50, which was a very popular synth that came out in 1987, and it used something called LA synthesis, which sort of combined a PCM sample with digital synthesis. So it had the attack at the beginning of the sound that was a sample, because Roland found that they could use that to get you to hear that was the sound. That was the sound that they were trying to emulate, and then the rest of it was just synthesized. So the Roland D-20 did the same thing. It had more wave samples, actually. It had more PCM samples in it, but they were only 8-bit. So it's different quality, and it's not, the sounds aren't, most people say that they're not quite as good as the D-50. I can agree, but I still think it's a very, very, very good synth, and it has its own charm, and I think it gets a lot of negativity, and like it gets a bad rap when it really shouldn't. It's more about the person that uses it, not the synth itself. You can make anything you want with any synth. You just need the right experience and skill for it. So the Roland D-20 itself is very cool. They also had the Roland D-10, the Roland D-110, which was the rack mount version, and the Roland D-20. They all came out in 1988, and then in 1989, Roland came out with the D-5. Now, I think it actually was the one, it's strange, it looks the most like a D-50. It has like the same kind of angle on the back with like the lines, but it's also it was the cheapest of this sort of lower end budget D series. So it didn't have it had no effects and no rhythm section. The buttons are also a bit different. So there was that. So it still had a memory card slot, and you could still use the cards with it, but they just wouldn't have any of the effects. I'm pretty sure the patches on it weren't, I don't think they were different per se, but they had different names. So there was that. And then a step up from that would be the D-110. The D-110 was the rack mount version of the D-10. I think it had something, not all the cards worked with it. I think it's the rhythm section I don't think it has the rhythm section or something like that. But it does have 6 individual outputs, which is really nice, and it has the effects. The D-10 is just the non-rack mount version of the D-110, and it has effects. It doesn't have the 6 outputs. None of the synths except the D-110 have the 6 outputs, but it does have a rhythm section as well. And then there was the D-20, which was the highest end, like the best of the best of this low end D series. It had effects. It had the rhythm section, and most importantly, it had a sequencer, which is something that not even the most importantly, it had a sequencer, which was something that not even the D50 had. So it has a floppy drive right here. Unfortunately, on mine it's broken right now, so I have to get it fixed. So I haven't been able to test out the floppy drive yet, but it's cool that it has it though, because I can use it. You can use it to store patches and songs and stuff like that. So I waited up until I had enough money to get this one in particular, and it was $245, and I ended up being able to get it for $230, and then with shipping and tax, it worked out to $246.68. So I think it was a very good investment for what you get, honestly. And so on September 5th, 2021, I finally purchased my first vintage synth. So there were a couple of complications, a couple of attempts of shipping. It was because I was at school. I finally got it delivered to me on September 10th, 2021. And then I ended up having to open it the next day on September 11th, 2021, because the power went out on September 10th for like the entire night. So I wasn't able to test it at all that night. So, and it did come back on like late at night, but then I thought I may as well just wait till the morning to get it out and check it out. So the seller I purchased it from was very nice, and I would recommend them, but they took down all their listings, and then this happened. So yeah, I don't know what happened with that, but anyways, I got it, and it was just fine, and I'm still blown away, and I remember being blown away when I first unboxed it because just of how it looked. Like, it looked brand new. It didn't look like something that was from 1988, something that was like 30 years old, and everything seemed to play perfectly too. There were a couple of issues though, and so I did have to end up getting it repaired. So after some more research, I found a person to repair the synth on September 13th. So on September 18th, 2021, me and my dad had drove down and took it to the repair shop that we found. And the shop is called Mystery Circuits LLC, and it's run by a guy called Mike. And I really do highly recommend him. If you live in North Carolina, he's very nice, and he did a great job with all the repairs. And I'll leave a link to his website down in the description below if you want to check him out. Please do. He's really good. So we arrived at the shop and we dropped off the synth. He had some other cool vintage synthesizers and instruments that he was repairing, and I've got a couple of pictures of them here. So I'll show those to you now, and it was really cool, some of the stuff that he had, and being able to actually see it. I think there was a DX5 even, which was like pretty rare, and there was one that was being repaired there, so it was really cool. So between September 18th, 2021 and September 28th, 2021, the synth was being repaired, the D-20 was being repaired, and Mike even took a couple of pictures of the synth while it was being repaired, so that was really cool to see. Because I was able to see like the inside of it, and it was like, wow, that's my synth. It's just, that's what it looks like inside, and it was cool. So after that, it was in much better condition. There were scuff marks on the synth. There was like white paint or something on it. The value fader on it wasn't outputting values right. It was like, it would like shoot up to like 127, and then yeah. So, and then the most common issue that is for the D-series synths is that the buttons weren't always triggering. You'd have to press them a bit harder or multiple times in order to get them to trigger. So I got most of the buttons repaired, and then the synth got cleaned up, and it looked even better than it did before. And I also got the fader fixed. Now, this was before I knew that the floppy drive didn't work because I didn't have any floppy disks to test it yet. So I still have to get that repaired, and I'll probably get the other buttons just fixed too while I'm at it. But it was in pretty good condition, and it's great. I love it. So since then, I've been using the synth all the time, and I love it. And I did more research since then, and I found that there were ROM cards produced for the D5, D10, D110, and D20 synths that contain patches. And I'll get more into these in the videos that I have planned to come out with later. So which brings me to my main point. So I'm going to be starting a series where I showcase each of these ROM cards. I'll give a little history about them, And I've also made some demo songs, which I've decided that I probably won't include in these videos, but I have released them as an album, which I'll also link in the description below, so please check that out because I'm really proud of it. I released it earlier last year, or really late last year, so go check those out if you want to hear them. And yeah, so if you ever want to get one of these ROM cards for yourself, I hope these videos are helpful for you, because I'm going through all the patches, all the sounds, and because like looking it up, I can't find really any information about these ROM cards for these lower end D series. There's stuff for the D50, and even the D50 doesn't have lots of information about it. But the D20 seems to really not have a lot of like archiving of it, like archival of these sounds and talking about it. So I felt like it would just be right to sort of give some history, talk about the history of these cards, find out as much as I can, and just put them out there to show people that this underloved synth can make some really cool sounds, and just to show what these cards can do, because some of them are really cool, and it was frustrating not being able to know anything about them. So I'm making these videos in hopes that if someone in the future is trying to find out more about these, then they can find these videos and become informed about them and figure out what they would want. And just because it's fun. So yeah. So consider subscribing to me if you find that interesting, and give this video a thumbs up, and consider ringing the bell to get notified when I upload these videos, because I will be soon. And share this with your friends if you know anyone that you think would be interested in this, or if you know someone that has one of these D-series synths, because I really want to just be able to help people and help people find these. So yeah. Anyways, back to the D20. So during my time contacting the seller, I asked about the serial number on the back, and upon looking it up, it turns out the synth was made in October 1988, or at least from what the site says. So I'm reasonably certain, but can't be 100% certain, but it's most likely was made sometime in October of 1988. So I was really happy about this, because from what I've seen, all these lower end D series synths were produced from 1988 until 1992, and then the D5 started production in 1989, so it went from 89 to 92. And I already talked about the D5, although one of the other things it does have a couple unique features. It has chord play, chase, arpeggio, and harmony, which is unique to the D5. None of the other D-series synths have it, so it set it apart. It also looked a bit more like the D50, as I said. The D10 included effects, and one other thing I forgot to mention about it, it included a ROM play button on it, which let you access the songs easier, the demo songs. All of the synths had these, but they were harder to access. But on the D10, it had a button right there that you could just press to access the demo songs. And then, so lots of people criticize the D20 for not sounding anything like the D50, for sounding plasticky and cheap. But if anything, I think it personally adds to the sound and the charm of the synth. And even then, it can sound just fine. It's about how you use it and process it. And the D50 didn't even last as long as these synths. It ran from 1987 to 1990. And then there was also the D70, which was largely unrelated to the D50. I think it was actually more related to the one of the U series synths. And it was made sometime in 1989 or 1990, and I don't know when it ended, but it was after the D50. Besides the sound cards, there was also a PG-10 programmer made for the budget D-series synths to make programming them easier, and I do have one of those. When I wrote this, when I first wanted to make this video, I didn't have it, but I do, so I will show you that too, because it's pretty cool. And so, as I was saying, this was the other thing that I got for the D20. It was this, the Roland PG-10 programmer, and I got this earlier last year, or again, more in the middle of last year. But it's really cool. It's I I really like it because I love all of the Roland programmers because they really get the styling of the actual synth sort of into the programmer itself. So all this did was kind of it just let you program the sounds a lot easier. It has this nice big screen. Unfortunately, it's not like a lit screen. I'm considering replacing the screen with a with like a lit screen. Although I do like keeping things original, but I might just do that for functionality's sake. But it's really cool. There's all the back connections on it. It's in pretty good condition. I got it from Japan, and the best thing is it fits like perfectly on the synth, and I'll show you what that looks like. And it really fits in. It like has its own perfect spot. So let me show you that. So I put it right here, and it just kind of fits just perfectly right there, and then you'll be able to see that it really does. Sorry. It really does kind of like perfectly align up with the it like fits in its own little neat spot right there, and it's really useful to have. And it I haven't used it that much, but it definitely does make editing sounds easier and like easier to understand, and it just looks really cool too. So yeah, that's the PG-10 programmer. So now I think it's time to just show you a bit more about the synth that I got. So that was the Roland D-20. I personally love it, and I think it's a fine addition to my collection. And of course, now I have even more. This was the only one I had at the time. I don't ever plan on selling it. I get attached to the gear I own, and I just feel like the only way it's ever gonna not be with me is when I die. So I'm really happy with it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, please like, share, subscribe. If you can, ring the bell. And I'll see you next time. So, yeah.